Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm very excited to have you as part of our town hall today. I'm Mike Allen, the AIM Member Engagement Manager. And before we get started, there are a few items I would like to go over. First, you'll notice that you are muted, but we do want you to participate on this town hall. To participate at any time, send us your questions by submitting them via the Q&A option that you can find at the bottom of your screen. We'll go over as many questions as we can and are always open to reaching out back to you after the town hall. I also want to briefly review the AIM antitrust and collaboration and work product policies. It is a policy of AIM Inc. to conduct its operations in strict compliance with the antitrust laws. No AIM activity shall create even the appearance of a violation of the letter or spirit of the antitrust laws. AIM committee meetings or a town hall like today are held for the primary purpose of advancements in our industry, which necessarily involves development of work product intended solely for the public domain. AIM's developed this policy for the protection of its members who engage in this important collaborative effort. Today, I'm here with two of AIM's key leaders, Joel Meyer and Jeanne Duckett. Joel leads Digimarc's specifications and industry guidelines, working to define and outline the capabilities of the Digimarc platform in AIDC areas. He's also a member of the AIM board. Jeanne leads the Transparency Initiative development for Avery Dennison Printer Systems, investigating blockchain, distributed computing, RFID, and other relevant technologies. She also manages the food IP portfolio for Avery Dennison's Printer Systems, as well as being the regional liaison for AIM North America. Welcome, Joel and Jeanne.
Thank you, Mike. It's an honor to be here today.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it.
Jeanne, if you would like to really kick this discussion off by going over our organization and what we do.
Sure, I'd be glad to. So you might be sitting there wondering, what is AIM? So AIM Global, AIM is a global industry alliance for stakeholders for automatic identification and data capture technologies, or what's called AIDC. Now, these technologies include a wide range of technologies, from digital watermarking to RFID, to barcodes devices, passive Bluetooth. And all these technologies are really key in these days when we talk about the digital revolution, because these are the technologies that support blockchain, IoT, asset management, and these applications. And what AIM does in this space is they represent industries and organizations that use, implement, resell, or develop technology. So AIM has been essential for over 50 years to the adoption, the growth, and the interoperability of those people that depend on AIDC technologies for either creating the digital marker or reading the digital marker. AIM creates standards, they promote community, advocate, and educate. AIM champions concerns and solutions to industry and government. And so one of the things you'll find on our work groups is you'll find things like FDA members, DOD members, and other non-profit or what you call non-governmental organizations, NGOs, such as the Reusable Packaging Association. And most importantly, AIM membership gives you the opportunity to influence the ever-evolving direction of our industry. As a member, you receive early access to industry, technical research, and information. But most importantly, you're going to gain access to a worldwide network of industry leaders and technology experts to be able to promote and effectively use AIDC technology. Joel, do you have any comments about AIM, being a member of AIM's board?
Thank you, Jeanne. Yes, I think I would just simply add that as a relatively new member, this is a great place to really get engaged with other industry members on the various work groups, and we'll be getting in that in more detail as we go through the rest of the presentation.
So, wow, what a year 2020 was. We'll probably be talking about 2020 for the next 100 years, since it took us about 100 years to talk about the 1918 pandemic. But in 2020, you see here on the screen a bunch of activities that AIM engages on, and I'll briefly touch on these activities. Before I do that, last year, about a year ago, a little more than a year ago, the board was sitting there talking, at the beginning of the pandemic. We didn't know how long this was going to last. We didn't know what the impact was, other than no one could buy toilet paper. But so we got down and we reached out to all of our community members and asked them, what can we do to help you? And there was a couple key trends that came out. They said, in this virtual world, we need the ability to connect with our customers. So one of the things we did through our industry groups that we're going to talk about is we started different outreach programs. And in these outreach programs worked to give our members a different way to connect out and reach out to people. And then we also networked internally with networking events, Coffee with Mike, Wine with Mike, and all these events to try to build community and try to ensure that the members were being as successful as they could be in that environment. So much of our collaboration work that I've been referring to helped build the standards, the AIDC standards, and provides. AIM has been doing standard creation for over 35 years. AIM is often the first step for the creation of standards for the AIDC industry. And there's a little known fact about AIM. AIM actually, on the screen there, you talk about the Technical Symbology Committee. All of the barcodes, ISO barcodes in existence, because there are other ones, but all the ISO barcodes in existence, such as, the UPCA, the code 39, the I-205, code 128, all of those barcodes came through an AIM technology symbol committee before it proceeded on to the ISO procedure. So that's the type of impact that AIM has had on the industry. But that's legacy. Standards still remain very critical in today's world. Without development of standards, implementation, and compliance to standards, you're going to impact the success or failure on some of the most important ongoing initiatives facing us today, such as sustainability, traceability regulation, and all these emerging trends rely and depend upon standards. Now, part of what AIM has is AIM has something called the TAG, or the Technical Experts Group, a Technical Advisors Group. And that TAG is the ISO vote. ISO works very simply. The 188 ISO countries work very simple. One country, one vote. AIM is the ISO vote for AIDC standards, and that's for all AIDC standards and all AIDC standards verification methods. So that includes RFID, low frequency, high frequency, RAIN RFID, barcodes, OCR, real-time locating systems. All the different AIDC technologies are voted through the Technical Advisors Group, or the TAG, from AIM. Joel, what is your perspective on this important work that we do in AIM?
Thanks, Jeannie. Yeah, one perspective that's helpful to understand as you look at this is quite daunting in the sense it's alphabet soup with a lot of different acronyms here. But as a new member, one of the things that you can get some assistance from AIM is if you have a new technology that you are considering entering into the standards world, you can go to the Technical Symbology Committee. And that's a place where, in advance of considering the technology for the international standards level, you can work with this group to get some consultation on that proposed standard technology, for example, for a particular type of data carrier, or assessing the ways of measuring the quality of that data carrier. So that is one role that AIM provides as a gateway into this world of international standards through ISO. And as Jeannie said, if you want to get involved in how ISO works, you can get involved in the TAG, the Technical Advisory Group, that then works on behalf of the United States to represent the US in the ISO standard setting organizations. And one of the key areas that relates to data carriers is this one on the right here, SC31. Right. Within that, you have various work groups. You have work group 1 that deals with data carriers and quality measures. And then you have others that relate to data and application levels and RFID. So that's just a little bit of navigation through what otherwise would be a fairly daunting list of things. But once you get into this, it's fairly easy to navigate, and AIM, getting involved in AIM helps you do that.
That's a good point, Joel. And you brought up the TG1, the Data Carriers Group, and the important work that group does. A little known thing that people don't realize is you see International Registration Authority listed there. And on there, you see a specification. You see several specific or ISO standards there. The one you see is ISO 15459, which is the basis of unique identification for all RFID and barcodes and Digimark in the world, and digital watermarks in the world. And a lot of people don't realize that standard actually underpins the GS1 numbering system, the MH10 numbering system, AIAG, the DoD, and that numbering system is what guarantees global uniqueness. And then you also see other things that we get involved in, the 15961, which is data protocol for radio frequencies, 15963, which is RFID for item level management, and then 29160, which is the RFID emblems. You see those RFID emblems on tags. So those are under AIM's purview as a recognized what's called registration authority by ISO. So in terms of our relationships, AIM is the secretariat. So that means AIM is the secretariat, or for the US Technical Group, for all automatic identification and data carrier techniques. This group formulates the U.S. position on all work related to the standardization of data formats, data syntax, data structures, data encoding, and technology for the process of automatic identification and data capture and associated devices in inter-industry applications. As part of your AIM membership, you have the opportunity to get involved with these groups. But the ISO standards is only one output of these groups. The other potential outputs of these groups are things like technical reports, technical specifications, implementation guides. We've written technical specifications with both the government and with the military. And what that really is kind of like an application standard, how to use AIDC in a specific application range. Right now, the TG8, which is the work group for application of AIDC, is working on the Internet of Clothes. And what they're generating is essentially an application specification to be able to how to identify, access, and trace that clothes all the way through from materials to recyclability. Next slide. And in addition to AIM North America, a lot of people, well, certainly me because I'm in North America, and AIM North America refers to both US and Canada. But in addition to AIM North America, AIM Global is a global organization, and it's identified with, you have AIM Asia. AIM Asia was founded in 2020, and it's registered in Singapore to be the single voice for the Asian AIDC industry. And AIM China and AIM Japan are coordinating with AIM Asia. And then you have AIM Europe. Role of AIM Europe is the vote of the European Commission in the favor of efficient use. One particular example is the use of the UHF RFID spectrum band. So AIM Europe, AIM, and RAIN RFID worked very closely together to lobby the EU to ensure that that technology could be continued to use in the EU range area. So delegates from AIM Europe actually sit on the ETSI and CAN membership boards and actively participated and guided that legislation. AIM Denmark is also in Europe, along with AIM Germany and AIM Russia. So these groups, we have an annual members meeting, and one of the things that I find totally fascinating about it is each of the chapters does an assessment of the impact of AIDC technologies in their region or country, whatever the case could be. And so you get to see what is happening with AIDC in Russia. What are the applications that are being implemented? What is the government doing? And the same with Europe and also with Japan and China. So it's a very fascinating way to get a very global sense of where AIDC trends are going.
Yeah, Jeanne did a great job teeing up of the role of the AIM in terms of advocacy, education, and networking, and where those activities really meet the market are in these AIM industry groups set out here. And we have two groups that are really application focused, the Internet of Things group and the Track and Trace group. And then we have two groups that are very technical in orientation and do a deep dive on technical components of AIDC technology in the RFID Experts Group and the Technical Symbology Committee. Now, with respect to Internet of Things, that's a buzzword that's been around for 20 years, but the AIDC industry really is where that theme becomes reality, because you have objects in the world, the prospect of them being connected to the network or to the internet is somewhat of a far off dream to get every object connected. But what AIDC technology does is it gives at least an object an identifier that can be associated with digital services on a network. So that is really the key to AIDC technology, and a vast amount of opportunity to make all objects network enabled. And the Internet of Things group is really working on how to use AIDC technologies for some of those opportunities across things like sustainability and even in the track and trace space as well. In the track and trace space, there is an orientation of helping companies with regulations that impact product traceability. For example, and Jeanne will elaborate on this in the pharmaceutical space and in the food space, there's a need for tracing products for various reasons through the supply chain. And because of the need for interoperability, getting involved in a group like this allows all the participants to figure out how their technology can plug in to the various levels of track and trace systems, which basically interface the object and AIDC technology to the networks and IT infrastructure that supports track and trace. And then, and I think Jeanne can elaborate on these groups further, you have the deeper dive groups that look at technical components and standardization of those components in the RFID space and in the barcode space. And the Technical Symbology Committee does the latter. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have a form of data carrier or a new application for a data carrier and you want to develop a specification for it, you can work with the Technical Symbology Committee on that specification. And it provides you the opportunity to work out some of the details, get feedback from longtime industry experts in the technology, and also get advice on how to interface with the international standards organizations. So Jeanne, would you please give us a little bit more color on these groups?
That is what I get for muting myself. Thanks a lot, Joel. So yeah, first on the Technical Symbology Committee, that's chaired by a gentleman by the name of Terry Burton, and he knows more about barcodes than almost anybody that I have met. And to give you an idea of how the Technical Symbology Committee works and enhances the industry is the German government came up with a concept called JAB code, just another barcode. And what it is a high density color symbol. and people use color because you can encrypt more data in the same space than you can for black and white. So that would be the purpose of color. And they first approached ISO, and ISO said that they weren't ready yet to go through the ISO certification process. So it reverted to the AIM Global Technical Symbology Committee, and the committee members worked with the German team, and they prepared the specification and standard for the ISO process, and JAB became the very first ISO certified color barcode. So that gives you an idea. Another thing that was recently released is what is verification, and trying to help people to understand and basically, just users of technology understand what verification is and why it's important. And then the RFID Expert Group it is a really fun group. This group actually covers all frequency ranges from LF to UHF. And this group works with different standards, and give a couple examples of recent effort. And here is a couple years ago, BMW had problems in encoding UHF, actually in this case, tags in their production in Germany. And the RFID Experts Group worked with BMW and actually discovered what the root cause of the encoding error was. They recently released a sensors white paper talking about how sensors are being integrated into these passive wireless technologies. And they worked with another a liaison ISO group to work on animal tag ID. So that just gives you an idea and a flavor of the breadth and depth of what these groups do. Okay, so the previous groups I were talking about were at the AIM global level. So all those AIM member chapters that I discussed had that opportunity to join that group and participate in that group. Now, in addition to activities at the global level, we also have AIM North America specific activities. And these are those initiatives you see on the screen there. And they include cannabis, food safety, pharma, and unique device identification, or UDI. The cannabis is an emerging group. It's actually led by Elizabeth Sinclair from Seagull Scientific, and that's in conjunction with the GS1 US and GS1 Canada groups to try to work on the emerging standards in cannabis traceability. They've had a couple of very successful webinars, and as things tend to open up here, we're looking to attend some trade shows. So your US groups, what they will do is we put on webinars, a lot of webinars in these different spaces. So we've had series of webinars on the new era of smarter food safety, on what Drug Supply Chain Security Act is, on the cannabis. And so we're looking at also on the UDI. And then the other thing that your AIM membership will do is, in fact, there's a North American food safety show coming up. AIM submits speaking panels, requests to speak at industry events in different verticals. And in this event, we did acquire a speaking slot. This was provided to the members of the food safety work group at no charge to them. And so that gives you an opportunity to speak as an expert on an expert panel with that visibility that will get you. And then in addition to working in the industry, these groups also work very closely with the FDA and the USDA. We write comments that we submit to the FDA and the USDA on both the pharma and also on the food safety initiatives. I imagine we'll see the same type of thing in cannabis. So recently, the FDA issued a challenge that they're going to open next week on June 1st. And the challenge is to come up with a low to no cost method of enabling food traceability. It's part of the new era Smarter Food Safety introduced in 2019. One of the things that AIM Global was able, or AIM North America was able to do for its members of its work groups is get an FDA member to come in and speak on June 1st. And so he can explain, Andy Kennedy from the FDA can explain what the parameters of the competition is, and answer any questions, and discuss maybe what the best way, or give some pointers on how to develop your submissions for that. So those are the advantages to belonging to the work groups, in addition to networking and listening to what other trends and other things that you hear from the other member groups.
Yeah, thank you, Jeannie. And to just go along with some of the collaboration that AIM members do, I did want to talk a little bit about the Engage Again virtual event that was held this past May. It brought together over 350 AIDC subject matter experts from all over the world. The event featured 3 keynote speakers, 75 educational speakers, 43 sessions, 6 networking activities, and an interactive exhibit hall. For those who attended the sessions in May, there will be recordings made available very soon for you to access any of the sessions that you may have missed out on. And if you missed out on our last virtual event altogether, we'll be hosting another Engage Again from September 8th and 9th. This 2-day event is your opportunity to dialogue with individuals looking for cutting-edge traceability and supply chain strategies that demonstrate best practices with a return on investment to help them succeed. New this year will be the Rain Alliance Tire Expo, co-locating at the event. This collaboration is expected to attract people from all aspects of the tire world, including tire manufacturers, distributors, and dealers, as well as solution providers. Engage Again will still have a focus on the automatic data collection industry, covering topics like barcode, biometrics, IoT, NFC, RFID, real-time location systems, and RAIN from the areas of application standards in all vertical markets. The call for speakers as well as exhibit and sponsorship opportunities are available now and can be viewed on the AIM website, which is www.aimglobal.org. As you see here listed are many of the topic areas we're looking for speakers in. We just ask that everyone act soon because speaking slots and sponsored exhibit opportunities are limited. And by taking part in this event, you have the opportunity to show your company as an innovator and expert in the industry. And speaking of industry, Joel will now begin an important conversation on emerging trends in our industry.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, and as you get involved in AIM activities, whether it be at the industry group level or at the work group level in North America, you really have a front row seat at the challenging problems that are being addressed by the industry participants, and you get to collaborate in a cross-industry way in establishing messaging for both the regulators and the potential customers of your technology. And so one of the things I was really taken by attending the Engage event recently was just how useful it was to see the leaders in the industry talking about where the industry was at and the challenges yet to come in solving some of the problems out there that AIDC technology is well suited for. And one of the areas I think was really key is, again, this IoT services area. And while the technology is pretty well developed within enterprises, there's a need for expanding access to the technology across and making it interoperable across organizations. And that can be achieved through the emergence of cloud services. And that allows interoperability among systems and visibility across participants in a supply chain, for example. So that's a very significant trend, and it really is representative of the types of opportunities that new members and other technology providers that aren't necessarily classic AIDC component providers to get involved in. You know, some of the networking services that can be provided, and another related technology that feeds into that theme is the ability of AIDC technologies to be implemented in mobile devices that everyone carries around in their pockets, and far expanding the reach of the technology, and even further, the ability to have web-based IoT or web-based AIDC scanning capabilities built into networks. So those are some emerging trends that I think expand the scope of the AIDC industry quite a lot. And then another massive theme among companies and ESG and so forth is the area of sustainability, and AIM's companies really address this in a number of material ways. One area is in food waste and food safety. And food waste is mitigated by more efficient supply chains and supplying the food to the consumer, and also in reducing fraud. And so the labeling and AIDC technologies that can be used both to make supply chains more efficient and also to reduce waste and shrinkage in grocery can address that problem. And then there's a growing opportunity for AIDC technologies to improve recycling. That's the plastic flowing into the oceans is a massive problem. People are now starting to turn their focus to it, and AIDC technologies can help in the collection and sortation of plastics to make sure it's placed back in the circular economy as opposed to ending up in our oceans. So those are just some areas that I think are very significant trends and really expand the market, the addressable market of all the participants in the AIDC industry. And you know, joining AIM gives you a front row seat and how you can work toward addressing some of these opportunities. Jeannie, do you care to elaborate on any of these?
So as we've been talking about, these are a combination of both the AIM Global and AIM North America, which I assume most of the people on the line here would be a member of, opportunities that you have to actually get involved and drive action. To give another example, we have an alliance with the Reusable Packaging Center, and we will be establishing a joint package to prove circularity of the reusable containers in the food supply chain between our two organizations. And so these are the types of efforts that our members get involved with, and they have the opportunity to participate in or learn about through different cross-industry meetings or webinars such as this. So who joins AIM? So AIM has a wide breadth of type of memberships. Together, our members foster the adoption of AIDC and data quality, effectively capturing the data that people are going to need to fuel traceability, sustainability efforts that you're going to see emerging more and more that Joel referred to in the coming few years. Our members are innovative and leaders in their industry, and they use technology to solve, not only to solve problems, but to enhance the solution and solve the problems of tomorrow. We are also aligned with several NGOs, as I've mentioned, as well as academia and industry experts. So thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. I guess I'll turn it back over to Mike now to handle the Q&A.
Yeah, thanks again, guys, for helping out here, give some more information about AIM. So we do have obviously some time for the audience to ask any questions that they may have. You can still chat those over by using the Q&A option that's located at the bottom of your screen here. But we'll just go ahead and get started with some of the questions we already do have here. First question we have is, what is the importance basically of getting involved in standard development?
Well, I can start.
Jeannie, you want to take that?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start. And Joel, if you want to add some information, that'd be great. So standard development, first thing it's important to understand, and we have a wide range of members from software providers to network providers, as well as to technology providers. There's a level of standards. So you have your base technology standards, such as a barcode or an RFID standard. And then you have application standards or white papers on top of that. And we have opportunities to get involved at those different levels. And obviously the importance of getting in standards is, one, if you get involved, you understand what's happening in a standard community. And if you can have an opportunity to provide your input. And as we know, standards really remove barriers and lower the cost of adoption for everyone. So these exciting technologies that Joel was talking about, traceability, circular economy, reuse, are all going to be propelled even faster forward, driving towards that ubiquitous interoperability.
Right, Jeannie, and I think it's important to understand that, you know, everybody can participate in a market based on a standard, and they can develop their own implementations of that standard and still differentiate their products. So there is an opportunity to enhance the size of the market, you know, use standard numbering schemes that allow different pieces of software or different networks to talk to each other. For example, in traceability, you may have the ability to ascertain where your products are within your own system, but how does a regulatory body trace a food product, for example, across these systems? And that's where there's a need to develop some interfaces that can interconnect disparate systems using a common language, using a common identification schema, and those types of things. So that's where the opportunity to really expand the use of technology comes in through some of these types of standards.
Great, thank you guys for that. Another question we have is, do end consumers get involved with AIM in the area of emerging trends? What are some examples of opportunities for solution providers in the AIDC space?
So I can start, and I think Joel will have some interesting perspective on this. Innovators can come from all levels. They can come from obviously technology companies, they can come from NGOs, they can come from end customers. And yes, we're working with some innovative end customers in proteins as well as in retail that are really wanting to drive this digital connected supply chain, and they understand the benefits that they can get from having a visibility into the supply chain, such as reduced waste, flexibility, lower cost. But so end users get involved when they are basically market leaders or visionaries in their space. Joel, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, I think it's fundamental that you know, in the modern era of AIDC technologies, you know, you have to be listening to the voice of the customer to provide valuable solutions. And so, whether it be in terms of the ease of scanning of the technology, or, you know, solving the key problems that the consumers have, that's where I think AIM can look at that and can say, you know, these are some of the things that are bubbling up from consumers, some of the key challenges that need to be addressed. And as I say, you know, AIM then looks at that and says, well, how do we make this technology easier to consume by all users? And is it easier to consume through these different form factors, for example, through web-based scanning or mobile applications and things like that? So getting involved in AIM allows you to both ascertain the voice of the customer and also deliver compelling solutions that solve the problems that the consumer wants solving.
Okay, and another question that kind of goes along with that is, how can I become involved in AIM to have greater visibility to opportunities related to trends?
Well, we laid out quite a number of opportunities, and I'm a good example as a person that's become much more involved recently in AIM and gotten on the board. The first place is to look at the industry groups that we mentioned and see where there's a fit. And there may be multiple people in your organization that fit at different levels, from the expert technology level to the use case level. So that's one area. The other area, and again in the work groups, is to look at within your region. One of the reasons why we have the regional levels is that we can have advocacy with the regionally specific government regulators. So in the North American group, there would be a focus on regulations in the U.S., for example, with food safety and drug supply chain safety. So that's an area where you can look to see what is the industry collectively doing to work with the regulators in ways that impact your technology offering. So those are just a couple of examples.
Great, thank you, Joel, for that. Jeannie, this question may be best answered by you, and I think you'll understand why. The question is, what's the difference between being an industry group chair and a board member?
Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, I can take that. Well, it just depends on the level of scope, right? So an industry group leader is highly focused and laser focused on something such as North American Food Safety, which is an AIM North America group, or IOT, which is a global group. A board member looks across the different sectors and talks about what can we do to promote AIM as an industry? What can we do to promote our members? They coordinate things like the Engage Again. We work on the strategic plan, and we look at different marketing and educational opportunities.
Great, thank you. Joel, did you have anything to add?
No, I think that's well stated.
Okay, great. Another question we have is, does AIM do any lobbying or work with government in the United States?
So I can take that. AIM has in the past hired a lobbyist and consulted with a lobbyist in the recent past. And that is primarily has been in unique device identification, UUID, as well as discussing some of the food initiatives that have been coming up. Currently, we still have a lobbyist at the EU because of concerns of the regulatory around the RFID spread spectrum bans.
Okay, great. Another question I just saw is, can non-members be involved in industry group meetings? And just to kind of start with that, I know that it's AIM's policy that non-members can be involved in 2 meetings they can sit in before they would have to become members to continue to sit in on those meetings. I don't know, Jeannie, if you had anything to add to that.
No, we oftentimes have non-members involved if they're interested potentially in joining, or if they're adding to a particular topic that's being discussed.
So another question that we have is, what will AIM's involvement be at industry shows? And if you don't mind me asking, what is your own business going to do on travel this year?
So AIM will be participating in in-person shows and has traditionally participated in in-person shows in 2 main venues. The one venue is, depending on the show, AIM will rent a large space and then basically sublet it to their members. And this gives our members an ability to try a show to see if they think it's going to be a benefit for their business model. The other thing that AIM does at these shows is they have like a demonstration of traceability. So we have supply chain traceability demos explaining from a standards point of view how traceability works for the food, for apparel, and for pharma. And then we have literature and different white papers that we've written. So that's the one model. The other model, things like Pack Expo and shows like that, oftentimes have an industry organization pavilion that they have a separate rate for. So we'll participate in that industry organization pavilion and have traceability or other demos, technology demos up and running, as well as various literature out. And we've actually met a number of people through doing those types of outreaches. Shows oftentimes will enable us to set up an industry expert panel. So this Canadian food safety show that I mentioned, which is in a couple of weeks, that is still a virtual show. But in the past, and I assume in the future, we will actually have physical in-present experts panels from our members that we set up. And oftentimes these are at no charge or very low charge to our members. Joel, do you have any other comments you'd like to add?
No, really, I think that was very, very well stated.
Mike?
Great. Another question we have is, can you talk more about the Cannabis Work Group and why it is a North America initiative?
Well, let's see. The Cannabis Work Group actually came out of some demos that we had seen in the industry. It is aligned with some of the cannabis industries associations in the area, as well as GS1 US and GS1 Canada. Canada actually has taken some. Canada GS1 has already taken some strides in developing a traceability standard, because the Canadian laws are more across Canada, unlike that right now in the United States, it's more by state. And then as far as global, we would have no issues moving into a global sector for cannabis. I'm not sure if we've seen the demand yet, but we have seen demand in the United States and Canada.
Great,
I think that
thank you.
there's been significant growth and opportunity in the space, and when you have a patchwork of laws legalizing cannabis and to various extents in states, and then with Canada and legalization there's really a need to fill a gap that otherwise would be perhaps driven by a federal or regulatory body. So I think what we've seen is that there's a number of industry players there that are looking for some guidance on how technologies can be used to solve problems there in the vacuum created by this patchwork of legalization. So it's really an opportunity to define AIDC technologies within that space in the absence of really any kind of federal level regulatory control over cannabis.
Great, thank you. Another question we have is, why are certain documents open to public review? Should that only be for the AIM members?
So as far as public review, I would think I would need an example. In general, the AIM documents are only open to AIM members. So certainly like the ISO standards that are being passed and worked on a continual basis. For people that are not aware, ISO standards have to be refreshed every 3 years. They have to, or 5 years, you have to go in and do an update. So there's continual work and maintenance on ISO standards. So like if I was working on 2248, which is digital signatures, the ISO standard for digital signature, typically the only people that would be available to are people that are opted into that group. So Mike, can you think of a case where we have standards or maybe white papers are out in the open?
Well, we've had the healthcare document, the AIM standard that we had open for public review. And a lot of that's because a lot of the testers and implementers, they might not be members, but they're going to actually be utilizing this document. So it is important for them to review. And if they see something from a medical perspective that we might have missed out on, that's an opportunity for them to add comments that we can go back and potentially update the document. Our public reviews also been a great way for us to get membership. We talked about our technical symbology committee and dot code. We had that up for public review, and that's how Terry Burton initially got involved with AIM, was answering our public review on dot code. And then he saw the importance of becoming an AIM member through that process. So I hope that helps with that question. Another thing, travel to events, a question we had earlier. The person wanted to know if AIM plans to travel this fall to events, and if Jeanne and Joel's company plan to travel face-to-face as well.
So I believe AIM is traveling to events And I apologize if I didn't say that sooner. I thought I did. AIM will be at events that starting in September timeframe, face-to-face events. As far as Avery Dennison is concerned, travel is still under approval at this point in time, but we're doing a constant review and looking at whether or not we should be attending some events. Probably would be the same type of time frame, August, September, or later. Joel?
Yeah, I think we're the same in the same position. We're reviewing the situation closely. We're all very much eager to get out and visit face to face with customers and partners, but at the moment we really have to take a wait and see approach.
And just AIM will be involved at PAX Expo. We're also going to be involved at RFID Journal Live. And as Jeannie mentioned earlier, we're still taking part in some of the virtual events going on. The food one she'd mentioned. Obviously, we have with the Rain Alliance our Engage Again conference. But yeah, around the August-September timeframe, we're going to start being around at some of these industry events, and we're excited to get back to them and share AIM's important initiatives with the public. So a few more questions before we go. One of them, obviously this will be directed toward Joel and Jeannie. What made you two want to join the board? What have the benefits been?
Well, maybe I can take that, Jeannie, since
Sure.
you've been at it for quite some time, and joining the board really gives you skin in the game. It's one thing to join the organization and kind of sample events from afar, but once you get into the organization at the board level, you have a much more material participation in how the organization is structured, its priorities, the content that it creates, the initiatives that it pursues. So it really is, if you're able to participate at that level, very advantageous to get up to speed very quickly. So I've been fortunate to be able to get access to things as a relatively new member that probably would have taken a long time exploring the market without the benefit of AIM participation.
I agree with everything Joel said. I think from an AIM board membership, it's the difference between being laser focused on one thing versus looking across all AIDC technologies and what do we need to do to move the industry forward. So it's a scope thing.
Great, thank you, Jeannie. And we got this question a couple times. I'm gonna mesh them together here, and I think we can just end with this question. I think that's very appropriate, and that is, what in your opinions are the best way to get benefit out of membership, or how can I get the most bang for my buck?
So I'll go first. I think the most way to get bang out of your membership depends on where you're at and what you're looking for, but certainly get involved, network with the different members. I have talked to many different members about different business opportunities and different things going on in the industry. And so once you become known in the industry, whatever your specialty is, if someone needs to fill that specialty, they're going to naturally think of you since they know you. So get involved, go to the networking events. And if you have a particular interest in one of our subject matters, go ahead and, bring it up and raise it. If you have an interest in a subject matter that we're not currently covering, the committees that AIM currently has aren't set in stone other than the TSC, but most of them aren't set in stone. And so they change their focus. And if you feel like there's an area where automatic identification and data capture is being ignored or sector being ignored, bring that to AIM, and we'll go out to see if there's members interested and form a group around it. Joel, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that's right. And if everybody brings their own perspective, their company's perspective, and the way to get bang for the buck for your company and yourself is to get involved in the industry group or the work group that fits your technology offering of your company. And in particular, get involved in helping draft or commenting on the position papers or the white papers, or perhaps even some of the comments that are being prepared for the regulatory bodies, the FDA in particular, for the North America group, because that allows you to really think through in a deeper way. How does what is the position of your technology within this ecosystem, and it really brings awareness to the unique capabilities that you and your company have, and I found it to be very welcoming, and this group is really looking to serve all participants in the community. It's not looking to say there's one technology that sits above all, or one particular framework that sits above all. It's really, if you get involved, though, you can ensure that to happen by having your voice heard in these industry position papers that are being worked on through the work groups and the industry groups.
All right, great. Well, Joel and Jeanne, I want to thank both of you for all your participation in AIM and our initiatives and serving on the board. Also, obviously, want to thank you for your time here today. And to our audience, this is Joel and Jeanne's contact information. If you have additional questions about AIM and the leadership, you can direct those toward them or AIM, and that's AIM's contact information. Audience, once again, I want to thank you for your active participation today, and we will let you know when this recording is available. Thanks again, everyone, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.